Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and these are Charter Moms Chats. These are videos we've been doing on weekdays to help families learn the important information to keep their kids safe and learning during the pandemic. And we're starting to look ahead to the coming school year and talk about activities for the summer. Us to talk about IDEA Public Schools. Um, Idea Public Schools. Got it. Okay, so our guest is Rolando Posada, who I've known for a number of years now. He was one of the first charter school leaders that I met when I was getting SA Charter Moms up and running back in 2012, and that was when Idea Carver opened in San Antonio, and we found out recently Idea Carver is one of the top nationally ranked high schools in the United States. So congratulations, that's some really good news.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to be here with you and the group, Inga. I'm ready to answer some questions about IDEA Public Schools, but thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah. So, the reason that I invited Rolando here is that I got some more information from IDEA, and actually it's on the blog. So let me pop that up. So sachartermoms.com. The new post today is it's a guest post from IDEA Public Schools, and it's called "The 3 Big Reasons Why In-Person Learning is Best for Scholars." And so, as you know, the San Antonio Charter Moms position is every family needs to do what works for them. But we also try to stay topical and timely. And I think right now a lot of families are kind of weighing this decision of the pandemic seems to be winding down. A lot of folks are vaccinated. More kids are going to be able to get vaccinated soon. We know more about the virus. And we can kind of weigh the pros and cons. We can look at the experience from the past year and say, what should our kids be doing going forward? And what this guest post emphasizes is IDEA Public Schools suggesting that there are benefits to having kids being in school in person. So that's what we want to talk about today. So I guess the first thing is I just want to reflect on the fact that a lot has happened since the last time we talked. So I think the last time we talked, it was actually around back to school time in fall of 2020. And we just know a lot more now than we did back then about what was happening with the pandemic, and also about how kids were going to respond to distance learning. So I wanted to get some feedback from you. What have we learned about the safety of having kids in school in person during the pandemic?
Thank you so much for that question, Inga. And for those who may have not heard from me before, I am the regional superintendent for IDEA here in San Antonio. We launched our first school about 9 years ago. Now we're at 28. In August, we'll be adding number 29 and number 30. And you may be in agreement with me that the year that has happened here before us is unlike any other year we've ever had. I think it's safe to say it's also the year in which we've learned the most. And, whenever you go through a principal's certificate program or a superintendent's certificate program, safety is still the key to everything. Sometimes we like to think that we're professionals in teaching and learning, but before even that can happen, it really is about safety. I feel like children are entrusted to me, and the very first thing that I should care about and that I have to be responsible for is for their safety. And so we have learned some very specific lessons about safety this year. And we believe that most students learn more when they are in person at school. So I just want to make sure you hear me say that. But we wouldn't encourage this unless we thought or we were sure that it was a safe environment. And so a lot has happened since we spoke about back to school in 2020. What experts learned about the safety of having kids attending school in person during the pandemic is that you just have to follow the protocols. We've been very much tied at the hip to the CDC, followed the research of in-person learning and the spread, and then we've just followed the recommendations and expectations. Also, I wanted to say that our own data shows that schools are not super spreader environments. IDEA has implemented strict health and safety protocols that have minimized the spread of the virus in our offices, in our classrooms. Dr. Fauci, the CDC, education advocates from around the country continue to encourage schools to remain open and for students to be in school learning in person. Their rationale is that schools are serving as a safe haven for families and health risks have proven to be minimal. This is especially true at IDEA, where our data actually has been compared to other districts and has been very favorable for us. But again, we create a very orderly environment where we expect students to follow the rules. In middle school, the bell rings. It's a very soft bell. Children come out in straight line. There's not a lot of running around, bouncing around, wondering what's in people's lockers. Most of our schools don't have lockers. And so because of that sense of orderliness and structure, it actually has been a great advantage to us that that's the culture we set, as we also add on the culture of safety and safety protocols.
Yeah, like you said, it's been a year unlike any other, and we've learned a ton from it. But one thing we can reflect on is a lot of things that we were worried about a year ago about having kids in person on campus actually turned out not to be true. Provided that, like a school like IDEA, where there's structure and students are following the rules, and the school is listening to CDC and health experts and following good procedures, that the school is not a super spreader place, right? That caseloads are extremely low and families can feel confident having their kids in school in person.
That is absolutely right. And it takes a great mindset shift, because in all honesty, the first few weeks for us were difficult. We at times were walking around forgetting our masks. So it took a few days to really shift into like, this is a new reality and this is not a game. It's not cute and it's not funny to forget the mask. And so once the adults were very, very clear what the expectations were, then we brought the students back, and it made it that much easier for students to understand that this was the new rule. In our classrooms, when students come in, they know exactly what protocol to follow. They sit down, they look at the board for the assign yourself. They write down, they assign themselves their homework for the night. Then they go into the do now. This is what I have 5 or 6 minutes to complete. Usually it's tied to the prior day's lesson. And then they go into the objective. Okay, we're going to read what we're learning today. And so they already had a structured 1, 2, 3. Now that structured 1, 2, 3 is more like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that involves like safety protocols, again, that we had to learn, we had to adapt and adopt ourselves. And then once we modeled it with great fidelity, at that point, we began to bring our children back in. And we have had a tremendously safe place. To date, we have had 40% of our staff already vaccinated. I've gotten both of my vaccines, yay, Pfizer. And all of these things are just like everything else at IDEA that is important. We set a goal around it. We measure progress and success towards that goal. And it's just such an easy thing for us because we already were a goal-oriented, results-driven organization. And this is just another layer of goals that we've added on, except that this layer of goals just really happens to go all the way to the top. This now supersedes all other goals. Our kids must be safe before we can actually teach them anything at all.
Right. Safety above all else. So one thing that I learned from reading the guest post is like you referred to research showing that students are actually learning more when they're in person at school. So like you said, the first question is, can they be on campus safely? And based on the data for the past year, the answer is yes. So looking at that, it's like, but do kids learn more when they're in person on campus? And the answer is also yes. So, but what did you know about like research and what do we know about the benefits of having kids learning in person on campus?
Thank you for that question. That's a really important question when so many of our kids have had to learn virtually. So students participating in in-person instruction just develop a deeper, I would say more meaningful relationship with the teacher and with the peers. And this creates a base, a foundation for them to just feel better about themselves, for them to feel like they belong, for them to feel valued, for them to feel like they can enjoy themselves seeing kids right next to them. They see body language. Engaging in conversations and socializing through class and play is extremely helpful. Students engage in valuable social and emotional learning practices. And so, again, I would go back to, they respond well to the structure and routines, which we lifted earlier. They are surrounded with caring adults. And then finally, they also have access to extracurricular things, whether it's, African drums, or it's track and field after the end of the day, that kind of thing. Not to mention, of course, that they're doing these things with their friends and their peers. All of this together helps students to feel excited about coming to school. They just feel more engaged. And I would add, the other one is one of my personal favorites. There's a certain accountability that they are more likely to get at the school than at home. I've gone through having kids at home, and I'm telling you, at work, I'm a very good teacher. At home, I'm not quite as good of a teacher. There's a certain line that's blurred when it's now parent/teacher, that just dwindles down a little bit of the accountability. At work, I am the professional. Everybody knows it. At home, I'm dad. It's just a different dynamic.
Right. It's like we joke about like teacher voice, and then so it's like there's like parent voice and teacher voice. It's not quite the same, right?
Not quite.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying about just like the social emotional benefits that students get from being able to do stuff with their peers, whether it's like being in the room together doing academic work, or those the relationships they make with their peers, with their teachers, and then the activities that they get to do, right? Like you mentioned, drumming or track, or that students are doing these things together. The relationships make the school a more meaningful place, and they feel like they belong there. They feel like they have a reason to be there, and that they're building something together. And it's very hard to create things like that virtually. And I know, like our family, when we were really being really cautious, like we tried, but like I don't know, Zoom calls or Minecraft, it's not quite the same as really being in the same environment with having kids their own age, that doing things together that they love.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I'll even go a step further and say it's more healthy for us as adults. I can't tell you what the sound of playground laughter does for me now. After going weeks with just having a diminished version of that, as educators, we go into education because we love kids, and we want kids to learn, and we want them to have great futures. And I think that I may take for granted just the value of those little things, the sound of laughter, the crescendo of laughter in the playground, in the cafeteria, kids talking to one another in the hallways, the interaction between kids and adults, the teachers, and just the different perspectives. And I think that it's like the old philosophy thing that to understand one thing, you have to first understand what it is not. And I think this last year has helped us to see and to understand what schools are without kids, or with very few kids. It is a sad sight. And so we are now inviting our children back to school. At some of our schools, we've got up to 60 or 70% of our students back.
Wow.
On testing days, some of our schools have 95, 98, 100% of their kids there. And so this, to me, is the joy of the actual profession, is to see our kids again. And there have been some dark days this year when we've gone without seeing our kids, when we've had to quarantine entire grade levels. The list goes on. It's been a year unlike any other, but hopefully you're hearing me say we want our children back as soon as.
And how much you appreciate them when they're back, even the noise, right? It's a happy noise.
Kids, and we miss them dearly. They're your kids. They're our kids too. The pronouns for us at IDEA are very important. We don't see them as other people's kids. They are our kids. They are our students. And so it's safe to say we miss our kids, and we're really looking forward to being at 100%, certainly at the start of the next school year in the fall. But if possible, even by the end of this year, some schools will actually hit that goal. And again, we would never encourage it unless we were absolutely confident that it's a very safe place.
Yeah. Another aspect that in the guest post is talking about the like the physical and nutritional health of students. That there's actually benefits to them being on campus as far as the type of food that they can eat and the amount of physical activity they can get. So I was wondering if you could comment more about that, about the physical and nutritional benefits of in-person learning.
Oh gosh, there's so many. I mean, according to the CDC, to not go very far, schools play a critical role in supporting children and adolescents in eating healthy and getting regular physical activity. I mean, schools can provide opportunities to reinforce these healthy behaviors by implementing wellness policies and practices, different PE programs, health education curriculum. You know, we do the fitness cram as a big goal. Every one of our teachers has a set of goals. And so our PE teachers are no different than our regular academic teachers. And they'll set that goal, usually a very, I would say, ambitious goal. You know, X percentage of our children will be able to hit the fitness cram goal by the end of the year. And so, again, the orientation of idea where we know that whatever we care about, we have to measure is very true in health and in physical education. Then there's also the sense of competition. I don't know if you know this about me, Inga, but I am a twin. My twin brother and I, excuse me, would literally go down to the basketball court down the street from us as children, and we might be able to play one-on-one for 4 or 5 hours straight. And it made us extremely competitive. Now we both have Masters of Business Administration. We're both doing some really interesting things, and I would say some successful things. And a lot of that, I believe, goes back to this sense of we played baseball together for the varsity team, playing for the city championship. We played basketball, you know, perfectly matched up. There was no better competition for me than him, and vice versa. And so these types of interactions are present at school. They're accessible to children at school with their peers, with the programs that the PE coaches lay down. And so I would argue that I don't know where I would be today if it hadn't been for those programs as a child. I'm competitive as a superintendent right now. I'm looking at those state exams. I'm looking at how Basis is doing, how Great Hearts is doing, how all of the other players, Kip and whatnot. So it's part of the fiber of growing up and becoming a really successful / productive individual in society. So I believe that PE and health are very much addressed through our goals and through actually just our daily lifestyle at Idea Public Schools. We are academically minded. We do more of that than other schools. But at the end of the day, we are not trying to send just a bunch of nerds off to Rice University and the University of Houston. We're trying to send off like really well-rounded individuals. Essentially, the best schools want real people, not just bookworms. And so that's all part of Idea as well.
Yeah, that competitive spirit. I know it's baked in. Like you can even see like charts on the wall showing like and like I love like the Royal Readers program. Someday I need to do posts like diving deeper into that. I love that whole concept, and you know, encouraging more reading and rewarding kids for how far they get. But what you're saying is like it's making well-rounded kids, like they're spending time doing physical activity, they're doing PE, they're getting measured, they're competing against each other. You know, and then also like the nutritional program, right? At Idea, there are the chefs and the nutritionists like developing healthy meals. You know, a lot of kids eat free meals on campus, and you know, it provides good nutrition. It might be better, you know, they're eating sit down meals instead of just snacking when they're at home. And I know there's an event coming up. Oh yeah,
I literally have just come back from filming an event on May 20th. It's the Cooking with Idea event. Our CEO, Joanne Gama, was here. David Robinson was here doing some of the filming. They'll be there that day. I saw all the vegetables, you know, in a couple of big baskets that are actually raised at some of our farms. We've got one at Eastside, Idea Eastside, another at Idea Monterey Park. And so we really are not putting on a show. Like, this is part of who we are. We also have a goal to become the healthiest school district in the entire country. How long it'll take us to get there, I don't know. But we've always said at IDEA, it's not what the goal is, it's what the goal makes you do. We also know that from having started in South Texas, year after year, we would hear that the highest percentage of obese children happened to be in the Rio Grande Valley. And so that really just lit a fire under our feet to take responsibility for the whole child, not just the brain of the child. And so, yes, this is part of who we are. All of it is part of raising kids. You can't do one without the other. A child with an empty stomach is not going to learn. Research shows that kids, especially in underserved areas, get most of their calories at school when they're receiving, 2 separate meals in the morning, in the lunch, sometime a snack in between. And so we also take that responsibility very seriously. About 84% of our scholars qualify for free or reduced meals, and that essentially is tied to our target audience and to our mission of college for all children. We believe that college is not just for the fortunate ones, not just for the senator's son. College can be for all. And so by choosing to put our schools in the neediest parts of town, we also are inspired to meet the needs of the whole child. On 4 separate occasions the last few months, we've had partnership food drives with the food bank at IDEA Najum. We know that's an area that's really hit hard in terms of economics. And we've seen hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of people come through the line. I don't remember the exact number, but we've given like thousands of meals out to the community, especially at the start of the pandemic. And then also now, as we encourage children to come back, we take this very seriously. I don't want to be hogging up the conversation, but obviously I'm just happy and just a little excited about the upcoming event.
I am too. And one thing, having good nutrition and good physical fitness, it helps kids have stronger immune systems, and it may help keep them safer. And then they can be, like you said, they need a full stomach to be able to concentrate at school. If they're getting good nutrition and they're getting more exercise, they'll have a stronger immune system and they'll be able to bounce back. So it's all part of keeping kids healthy and safe and helping them have a bright future, in spite of maybe influences in their community, that might be making it harder for them to progress. So it's really important to the mission, and it, it's an important part of, getting kids back on campus, is reminding them like, hey, we have healthy meals and we have opportunities to exercise, and it's just part of the benefits of in-person learning. So there was another aspect in the blog post. So you mentioned that, I think you said it was 40% of the teachers are already vaccinated. I remember, so in the post they talk about and I've seen pictures on social media, events of teachers getting vaccinated on campus. I know y'all have had COVID testing available, as ways to keep kids safe. You mentioned sometimes the halls are empty because an entire grade level has been quarantined, and is doing distance learning. So I wonder if you could comment more on the things like vaccination, testing, quarantining, and these procedures that all combine to make in-person learning safer.
Absolutely. As we speak right now, we're having a vaccine clinic at one of our campuses, IDEA Monterey Park. Yesterday, we had one at IDEA Eastside. We're providing this for staff and for scholars, those who are eligible. I believe it's 16 and older right now. And so, yes, it's changed the way we do business. Safety is first now. At the start of almost every meeting, there's some kind of discussion. But just to be clear, as a district, we've implemented really strict health and safety protocols to ensure our scholars and staff remain safe. And then we've also gone above and beyond to try to ensure that people have the opportunity to get the vaccine. We also are aware that not everybody is wanting to get the vaccine. So we're not, twisting somebody's arm behind their back. We're just putting it out there so that people have access. So much of the challenge has to do with access right now. And we'll continue to adhere to these safety measures as advised, as I mentioned earlier, by the CDC and national health experts. We've done safety trainings in an effort to just help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. We've done lots of training over the course of the last year. We'll continue to operate by our core safety principles and protocols. There's health screenings, there's masks worn at all time, hand sanitations before entering buildings and throughout the school day. Even in my own office, I have my temperature checked every single time I go in the morning. There's added sanitation of frequently touched surfaces, social distancing to the extent possible. We are starting to see people eat together. Again, we do it very carefully. And then as far as the actual number, 54% of our staff in IDEA as a whole, 54% of the staff members have received the vaccine. Here in San Antonio, it's 40%. And we continue to spread the word. As I said, we're having one of those clinics today. But we're deeply invested in the health and the safety of our scholars and staff, and we'll continue to work towards what some might call herd immunity, where the majority of people are already vaccinated, and then the chances of the spread just diminish and diminish. So that's what we're working towards within an environment where we aren't requiring people to get the vaccine.
Yeah. Hey, we have a comment from Louise Burke. Thank you, Louise. She says, excellent. So she's excited about all the safety measures that y'all are doing. Actually, this is Louise Burke of Idea Burke, right? I think the bees, the bumblebees?
The bumblebees. And Louise Burke is only one of my favorite people in the whole world. I can't see the chat box right now, but if you're out there, Louise, so good to hear from you. I see the picture. Excellent.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so another question I had was, like you said, you said on some campuses, it's 70% of the scholars are back, which is fantastic. That you're inviting more and more to come back, and if possible, to try to get up to 100% by the end of this school year, and hoping that when school resumes in the fall, that you'll be as close as possible to 100% on campus. But do you have any advice for families who are kind of weighing the decision of, am I ready to have my scholar go back on campus, in-person learning at IDEA? Kind of what decision making should they be making?
That's a great question. Before I answer it, I'll say that when we've had to quarantine, it's not, I can't remember of a single time that it was because of something that we did or failed to do. Usually what happens is, after a weekend, students might be exposed to a lot of people, some of who are invested, and then that's the way it's come out. And so my advice would be to follow the safety protocols put out by the CDC yourselves as parents. Safety is our number one priority. We'll keep safety measures in place, and we'll continue to follow health and safety protocols from TEA and from the CDC, but our effectiveness is limited when other folks outside of our bubble are not as committed to those same safety protocols. I'm not trying to be overly assertive, but I do think that this is an important thing that should be said.
Yeah, that's been my observation as well, is that spread on campus is almost unheard of. But it is still spreading in the community, although thank goodness cases are much, much lower than they were during like the January surge or the July surge. There is still some community spread. But hopefully, like, as cases in the community become more and more rare, and as more people in the community become vaccinated, like you said, we're approaching herd immunity. I know we're not there yet, but we're approaching it. And then less and less often that kids will get exposed. And but it's when people gather, in ways, going outside of the CDC guidance, when groups mix, like that's when those exposures happen, and then it can impact a larger group of kids. So like you said, the more that we as families and we as citizens follow the guidelines, the safer it makes kids on campus. And I think we as a society need to think about, like, how important is it for kids to have access to high quality learning? And if they're learning more on campus, then maybe we need to prioritize education, and maybe sometimes we have to make trade-offs, and maybe not have a big gathering yet until community spread is in a different place. So anyway, that's my analysis of what's going on. But everybody's got to make their own decision. I think that's one of the challenges, is like, there's no one size fits all answer for like how a family should conduct themselves. And I know our family is very cautious, and now we're like very excited to be able to do patio dining at restaurants and things like that we hadn't been doing for a long time.
I agree. I agree with everything you said. The only thing I forgot to say is pick up the phone and call your principal, your assistant principal, your teacher. I think you'll be very pleased to hear to what extent we approach each day to make sure that kids are safe.
Yeah, and having that communication, I think being able to talk things through. I've talked to parents who felt like they weren't sure, but then once they got to talk it through with a teacher and a staff member, and it's part of what it's part of what's made this past year so challenging is that like we're all more stressed out. And sometimes the solution to that is spending time talking, but also then it feels like we're working longer days. But we're problem solving together, and I think we're all learning from it. So yeah, it's just a matter of keeping up the channels of communication and continuing to build trust.
Absolutely. I think my phone is starting to ring off the ringer here. Any questions for me?
I guess so. We'll just. I always like to close out with. I hope that people hearing this are thinking this Idea Public Schools place. It sounds like they know what they're doing, right? Kids are learning a lot on campus. It's very structured and disciplined, but they also have fun. They get to do gardening and sports and build friendships. So anyway, I put the link up on screen, ideapublicschools.org/apply. And like Rolando said, there are 28 campuses going up to 30 soon. So I just encourage everyone to apply. Yeah, do you want to add anything to that?
I sure would. I appreciate the opportunity actually to be here today because we still have some vacancies at Idea Schools. Mostly we have vacancies in kinder and in 6th grade. And so I would encourage you, if you don't have a school yet, to call us up and see what we have, because there might be a space for a new Idea student. We'll be serving close to 18,000 students next year. And once you're waitlisted, sometimes it can take up to 3 or 4 years to get in. And so with this being a pandemic year, it might be the best chance to get into an Idea school if you haven't already had the opportunity. But we've got spaces at Idea Amber Creek, a few at Idea Breckenridge, Westside, Idea Burke, and then Carver's got sporadic seats in almost throughout each grade. We've had some people move and things of that sort. Matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, the U.S. News and World Report, as Inga mentioned earlier, mentioned charter as the 3rd or 4th best school in the entire city of San Antonio, 38th best in the entire state of Texas. So lots to celebrate, lots to be proud of right now. And there's still a few seats open here and there. I'd say kinder and 6th grade are where we have the most openings, but I would encourage you to apply as soon as possible to give yourself an opportunity to get your child into our schools.
Yeah. It's a historic opportunity to have access to schools that normally have super long waiting lists, but everyone's kind of on the sidelines or not making up their minds yet. I don't know. It's just very fluid this year. So basically make your move. Now's your chance to get your kid into an Idea school.
Thank you so much, Inga. I really appreciate the opportunity to just share out a little bit about what we're doing. And I appreciate y'all being just playing the role that y'all do in our community, especially for charters. Over the years, yours has been a really important voice for the movement of choice. We know that not all parents have a big voice for one reason or another. Either it's lack of transportation, lack of time, but you've been a great voice for lots of people in the city of San Antonio. And so we appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Well, it really means a lot to me, but we couldn't do it without people like you and the team at schools like Idea and how dedicated you are to the children. So thank you.
Thank you so much. You all have a great day.
You too. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.